The Louis Vuitton luggage hit my Italian marble floor with the confidence of someone who'd already mentally redecorated my home. I'm moving in tomorrow. James said you'd be out by then, the woman announced, her voice dripping with 20-something entitlement, while my husband of 12 years stood behind her like a coward awaiting execution. The smile that spread across my face wasn't the devastated expression they'd expected. It was the same one I'd worn 3 months ago when I'd first seen their texts on his work phone. "Oh," I said, leaning against my doorframe. The doorframe of my $8 million Pacific Heights mansion. Did James mention whose name is on the deed? Or the prenup clause about infidelity? Or that his company's biggest client is my best friend? The woman, Brittany, according to the private investigator's report sitting in my office, faltered for just a second. Her strawberry blonde extensions swayed as she turned to look at James, whose face had gone the particular shade of gray I'd previously only seen during IRS audits. "James?" Her voice pitched higher, uncertainty creeping in like fog through the Golden Gate. My husband, the man who'd stood at an altar and promised fidelity in front of 300 guests, couldn't meet either of our eyes. He studied the Hermes scarf Brittany had probably picked out for him, with his credit card, of course. The same card I'd canceled yesterday. "Sarah," he finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Can we discuss this inside?" "Of course," I said, stepping aside with a hostess's grace. "Please come in. Both of you." "Mikasa, yes. Well, actually, it's just Mikasa." Brittany hesitated at the threshold, her Louboutins clicking nervously on the marble. She was pretty in that Instagram filter way, all contoured cheekbones and veneered teeth. 26, according to my investigator. Marketing coordinator at James's firm. Liked to post motivational quotes about knowing your worth and never settling. The irony wasn't lost on me. They followed me through the foyer, past the Chihuly installation James had bought to impress clients, into the living room where floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Bay Bridge. I'd hosted a charity gala here last month, raised $2 million for children's literacy. James had spent the evening texting someone named B. Work. "Champagne," I offered, already pouring myself a glass of the 96 Dom Perignon we'd been saving for our 20th anniversary. "We should toast to new beginnings." "Sarah," James started. "Oh, I insist." I poured 2 more glasses, handed them over with the practiced smile of someone who'd spent 12 years perfecting the role of corporate wife. "To transparency." Finally, Brittany took a tentative sip, her eyes darting around the room like she was cataloging her future belongings. The Monet above the fireplace. The Steinway grand piano. The Persian rug that cost more than her annual salary. So, I settled into my favorite chair, the one where I'd sat 3 months ago, reading their text exchanges. "Tomorrow, you said? That seems optimistic." "James promised," Brittany said, finding her voice. "He said the divorce was already in motion. That you'd agreed to everything." "Did he?" I pulled out my phone, scrolled to a saved screenshot. "That's interesting, because just last week he texted me, and I quote, 'Can't wait for our anniversary trip to Santorini, baby. I've booked the villa you loved.'" The champagne glass trembled in Brittany's hand. "That was before," James tried. "Before what? Before you decided to leave me? Because according to my calendar, that was 6 months ago. Right around the time you started those late nights at the office." I smiled at Brittany. "How many of those nights were actually with you?" She turned to James, mascara already threatening to run. "You said you hadn't been together in years. That it was just a business arrangement." "Common lie," I said conversationally. "Right up there with my wife doesn't understand me, and we're staying together for appearances. Though I'm curious, James, which version did you go with?" He loosened his tie, the Hermes one I'd bought him for Christmas. Everything he wore I'd chosen. The Tom Ford suit from his birthday. The Rolex from our 10th anniversary. Even his cologne. I'd picked it because it reminded me of our honeymoon in Tuscany. "Sarah, please. Let's discuss this privately." "Like you discussed our marriage privately with her?" "No, I think transparency is better. Don't you agree, Brittany?" The younger woman set down her champagne, her hand shaking. "I didn't," he said. "You knew. That you had an arrangement." "Oh, we do have an arrangement. It's called a prenuptial agreement." I pulled out the document I'd been keeping in the side table drawer for exactly this moment. Page 12, section 4. "Would you like me to read it, or can you manage?" James lunged forward. "You don't have to." "Actually, I do. See, Brittany deserves to know what she's getting into." I cleared my throat, read aloud. "In the event of infidelity, proven by documentation, The unfaithful party forfeits all rights to marital assets, shared business ventures, and future earnings from any enterprises established during the marriage. That's not enforceable, James said quickly. Too quickly. According to Richardson, Mayer, and Associates, it is. You remember them. The firm you insisted we use because Richardson was your Harvard buddy. I sipped my champagne. Turns out Richardson takes adultery clauses very seriously. Something about his own messy divorce. Brittany was backing toward the door. James, what is she talking about? What business ventures? Should I tell her, or would you like to? When he remained silent, I continued. Monroe Consulting. The company James runs? I own 51%. Silent partner, technically, though I've been quite vocal with the board lately. The board loves me, James protested. Loved. Past tense. They were quite disturbed by the security footage from your office. You really should remember that I designed the security system. I turned to Brittany. Did he tell you about the leather couch in his office? The one his wife picked out. Her face went from pale to green. Or maybe we should discuss McKenna Industries, I continued. Our biggest client. 60% of Monroe's revenue. Run by my best friend from Stanford, Natalie McKenna. We had lunch yesterday. Fascinating conversation about contract renewals. James's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and his gray face went white. That would be Natalie now, I said helpfully. She mentioned she'd be sending the termination notice today. Effective immediately. Something about irreconcilable differences in corporate values. You vindictive. Careful, I warned. Brittany's recording this. Both their heads snapped toward me. Oh, didn't you notice? Your phone, Brittany. The one you set on the table when you put down the champagne? Recording app's been running for 12 minutes. The red light's quite visible from this angle. She scrambled for her phone, nearly dropping it. The recording app was indeed running. She'd probably started it to protect herself, get evidence of my crazy wife behavior for later use. Delete it, James ordered. Actually don't, I said. You'll want that for your employment lawyer. My what? Well, Monroe Consulting has a strict fraternization policy. Section 3.2 of the Employee Handbook. Relationships between supervisors and subordinates are grounds for immediate termination. I smiled sympathetically. You did read your handbook, didn't you? You can't fire her for. I can't. But the board can. And they will, once they receive the complaint filed by 3 of your other subordinates about inappropriate favoritism and hostile work environment. I pulled out more papers. Signed affidavits. Apparently, you weren't as discreet as you thought. Brittany sank onto my sofa, my custom Italian leather sofa, and put her head in her hands. This isn't happening. The house, James said desperately. The prenup doesn't cover the house. I've been paying the mortgage. With money from Monroe Consulting. The company I majority own. My lawyers call that commingling of assets. But let's check the deed, shall we? I pulled up the county records on my phone. Sarachan Walsh, sole owner. Purchased 2018. 2 years before we married. I've been paying into it for 4 years. Rent. You've been paying rent. Fair market rent, according to my accountant. Though you're 3 months behind. I stood, smoothing my dress. I've been patient, but I'll need you out by Friday. Friday? That's in 2 days. Yes, well, Brittany was ready to move in tomorrow. Surely you can move out by Friday. I walked to the window, gazed out at the view I'd fallen in love with 6 years ago. Unless you'd prefer I file the eviction paperwork today? Where am I supposed to go? Brittany, didn't you mention you had an apartment? I asked sweetly. A studio, she whispered. In Oakland. Cozy. Though you might need to find a new one. Oakland's expensive on unemployment. Sarah, please. James's voice broke. 12 years. Doesn't that mean anything? I turned to face him, really looked at him for the first time since they'd darkened my doorstep. The man I'd loved. The man I'd supported through business school, through his father's death, through the failed startup before Monroe. The man who'd held my hand through IVF treatments that never took, who'd promised we were enough just the 2 of us. It meant everything, I said quietly. Right up until you decided it meant nothing. I made a mistake. No, you made a choice. Every text, every lie, every night you came home and kissed me after being with her. Those were choices. I gestured between them. And now you get to live with them. Together. In Oakland. What about your reputation? He played his last card. What will people say when they find out you destroyed my company over personal matters? They'll say I'm an excellent businesswoman who doesn't tolerate contract violations. I finished my champagne. Though if you prefer, we can let them read the texts. The ones where you described in vivid detail what you wanted to do to Brittany on my grandmother's dining table. Brittany made a sound like a dying cat. Oh, you didn't know about those? He's quite the poet when inspired, though his spelling is atrocious. I set down my empty glass. Now, I have a board meeting in an hour. I'll need you both to leave. Sarah, that's Ms. Walsh. Or Chairman Walsh, if we're being formal. I walked to the door, held it open. Your belongings will be packed professionally and placed in storage. The bills will be forwarded to your new address. They stumbled out like shell-shocked soldiers, Brittany dragging her designer luggage, James still trying to process how his Tuesday morning conquest had turned into professional and personal annihilation. At the door, Brittany turned back. How long have you known? 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. I didn't hesitate. I needed time to prepare. Prepare? Transfer assets. Secure contracts. Document everything. I smiled, the real one this time. You did me a favor, actually. I'd been thinking about divorcing him for years. You just gave me an ironclad reason. Then why? Why let you show up today? Because I wanted him to see exactly what he was losing. And I wanted you to see exactly what you were getting. I looked at James, who seemed to have aged a decade in an hour. A middle-aged man with no company, no assets, and a reputation that'll be worthless by end of business today. You planned this. Every detail. Though you showing up with luggage was a nice touch. Really drove home the entitlement. I watched them walk to James's Tesla, the one with the lease in my company's name. He'd be getting a notice about that tomorrow. Ms. Walsh. My housekeeper appeared. Shall I have the locks changed now? Please, Maria. And call the security company. All access codes need updating. The champagne. I looked at the 2 empty glasses on my coffee table, the bottle still half full. Keep it chilled. Natalie's coming by later to celebrate the McKenna contract renewal. The one Mr. James thought was canceled? Terminated with Monroe Consulting. But McKenna Industries just signed a 5-year deal with Walsh Ventures. My new firm. I smiled at Maria's knowing look. I registered it 3 months ago. We launch Monday. The house felt different with them gone. Lighter. Like someone had opened all the windows and let out 12 years of stale air. I walked through the rooms, seeing them clearly for the first time in months. My home. My choices. My life. My phone buzzed. Text from Natalie. Heard the morning went well. Still on for champagne. I typed back. Absolutely. Bring contracts. It's time to build something new. Another text, this one from my lawyer. Divorce papers ready. Expedited filing approved based on documented infidelity. Estimate 4 weeks to finalization. For weeks to officially end what had been over for years. I poured myself another glass of champagne, raised it to the Bay Bridge sparkling in the morning sun. To transparency, I said to no one and everyone, and to women who know their worth. Somewhere in Oakland, a marketing coordinator was learning that Instagram quotes and reality rarely aligned. Somewhere in San Francisco, a man was discovering that the price of betrayal compounds with interest. And in a Pacific Heights mansion with her name on the deed, a woman was finally, completely, unapologetically free. The doorbell rang. Maria answered, returned with an envelope. Courier delivery, Ms. Walsh. Marked urgent. Inside, resignation letters. 3 of James's key employees, all women, all talented, all tired of being overlooked. Their cover letter was brief. We heard about Walsh Ventures. We'd like to interview. I smiled, reached for my phone. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what was. It's building something better from the ashes.